Trump administration is highlighting safety first. So basically, they are trying to shore up the security agencies or networks to a point where anybody coming in into the US has to come in, like we say in Nigeria, correct. So you have to have all your you gotta go correct. You have to have all your papers, the required documentation. You know, you're an international student, green card or not. You know, you want to be very careful about the kind of things you say. You don't just want to. I mean, you can have an opinion. It's because it's a free country, but in your opinion, you also want to understand that this opinion is in line with the current administration. That's just my take on it. You know, because people will say then that makes it is no longer free speech. Anyway, you might interpret it how you want to interpret it, but I'm saying if you want to say it, you have to say it in line with the administration. In fact, we've seen cases of where you actually have a green card if you are not very careful. Absolutely. Where his green card has been rescinded on the grounds of terrorism, on the grounds of fraud or whatever. Like so many cases out there that we can actually mention.
Yes, you have your legal rights, all the rights for the U.S. citizens also accrues to you. Besides, some of the ones you mentioned, voting, and I would even extend that even the responsibilities, upholding the law and all the penalties also accrue to you. All of them also accrue to you. If the administration wants something and you're going against it, you are going to be met with whatever the administration has. Now there are laws that balances it out, So that's, to me, that is really how it works out. When even Martin Luther King or any of those guys, they were citizens, they were fighting for stuff. What happened to them, right? They were able to achieve, some of these things, but I think it's just, to me, it's US and it's also human law. Naturally, how you want to fight something, you're in a situation, you want to make your case, then there's the constituted authority.
Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of the Mark Blaney podcast, and we appreciate you joining us again today for another wonderful episode. For those of you that have been with us from the beginning, we really appreciate you. And those that are just joining us for the first time, welcome to you. And we hope you find value in the information we're providing and the conversations that we're having on this platform, on this podcast. And we hope as well that you continually be with us and always join us for subsequent episodes. So last week, just a brief recap. We talked. It was more like the conclusion to a topic that we've been discussing for a couple of weeks. Breaking down barriers in the job market and into career. We started talking about entrepreneurship, and you give examples, or I used myself as an example, talking about how I got into entrepreneurship in the US, in my auto business, and discussed about, how, the processes and some of the challenges, and, giving like a behind the scene story, about how I got into entrepreneurship and into business in the US as an example, for every one of you and other people that are looking into, doing the same thing or getting into that aspect of career in the US. So I think it's a very, very valuable. There are so many valuable information in those previous episodes, especially last week. And that if you haven't seen it, I would suggest strongly that you go and look into it and try to learn some more and hear some more about my story specifically, and also how it can be helpful to you as well. If you're considering going into business. And this week it's a new week, and we're diverting entirely into something a little different. we're all immigrants and coming into the U.S. We came into the U.S. at different times and under different circumstances. And so much has been going on in the U.S., regarding the state of immigration, and that is what we, thought about just, having a conversation about today. We have a new administration, that started in January of this year, and they are going, blazing hot, with multiple immigration reforms. So we just thought, I think a lot of people, certainly might have an idea what is going on in the immigration world, but may not really know how some of these policies or policy changes are actually affecting them directly as immigrants, whether for those immigrants that are already here or those that are intending to come into the country. How do some of these policies, affect you? In fact, I think it's one of the episodes that I would actually love to hear more from, the listeners and our viewers, and get feedback from you on how some of these policy changes are directly affecting you or someone that you know. It could be maybe someone that you know in school, in your neighborhood, at work, in business that you're doing business with. How some of these things that are going on within the immigration space, are actually, affecting you. So that's what our conversation primarily will focus on today. And we just want to have a free style, conversation and, just talk, our own opinion and what we think, individually on what exactly it's going on. What are the impacts of the current immigration policies on immigrants in the United States? So as we all know, immigration affects everybody in different ways. As immigrants in the U.S., we all come in different forms. Some come in as students, some come in as spouses to maybe an immigrant, some or an American citizen, some come in, coming in through the border, which has been one of the biggest story, recently, and so there's just so many entry points. But for each of these entry points, I think the current administration has something for every single one, and regardless of your status, in the country. So I'm just going to be, pushing it over to, my co-hosts, on their thoughts. One of the things that we have been seeing going on in the country, with ICE, international students are now a focus in a way that we've actually not been seeing before. There's been a lot of news about how some international students are getting their visa revoked. People who currently who came into the country with a normal F1 visa, and they are getting their F1 visa revoked, and that's even led to legal challenges as well. What do you guys think? What are your thoughts about some of these things, especially regarding international students getting their visa revoked? What are your thoughts, and how did we get here?
I know Annie has a lot to say, so I'll be very quick. So I had a story about in Georgia, but Georgia is particularly important to me because when I was coming to the States, remember the story that we all shared. All of us came through Atlanta, so Atlanta is like a second home, to be honest, away from Lagos. So there was a story I heard about a lady who was going to one of the state institutions in Georgia. She had a minor traffic violation. Incident with the police. In fact, she was not the one driving. It was actually the other party that was driving. But of course, they were pulled over, both of them, and they were asked for their means of identification. She said she was a student. I think she was going to Georgia State, if I remember correctly. So we give them their Yeah, the police took their information. I think now what the police are actually doing, I don't know if it was common before. It's once they run you through the system,
Hmm.
reasons they see that maybe you're not a green card holder or you're not a US citizen, the next thing that they do is probably they want to check your status in the country. So unfortunately for that lady, she was undocumented.
Wow.
Wow, so it's just a simple traffic stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So then the next thing that happened, her name was submitted to ICE, and
Right.
well, the conversation was to move her from the. She was detained by the cops. They didn't let her, they didn't let her off the hook. Took her from the police center or from the police station to the
Right. Detention center.
Oh, so just to kind of buttress your point that now, there's a little bit more touchlight into international students as a whole, immigrants as a whole. And I think the idea of this current administration really is to, because Trump administration is highlighting safety first. So basically, they're trying to shore up the security agencies or networks to a point where anybody coming in into the US has to come in, like we say in Nigeria, correct. So you have to have all your you gotta go correct. You have to have all your papers, the required documentations, have the legal stay. And there's something that is also I think is very important that Mark Rubio said. He said visa basically is issued by the United States, so it's the issuing country that has the right to actually give a visa. That there's really no grounds to. They don't need it because there was a conversation that happened with I don't know if you guys remember with the Palestinian lady in I think in the north, was it? I can't remember what it was. Or Boston or
I don't know why you there. I think it's
Boston or New Jersey, one of those states. So she was she was on the editorial board and she wrote some things. I think criticizing the war on Palestine by Israel.
Yeah.
Eventually, the ICE got involved and she was picked up. And so the current conversation is, man, if you're an international student, green card or not, you want to be very careful about the kind of things you say out there. You don't just want to, you can have an opinion. It's because it's a free country, but in your opinion, you also want to understand that this opinion is in line with the current administration. That's just my take on it. Because people will say then that makes it is no longer free speech. Anyway, you might interpret it how you want to interpret it. But I'm saying if you want to say it, you have to say it in line with the administration. So cases like that has highlighted the point that having a legal stay is not necessarily a guarantee of you remaining in the US. Because F1 is a legal stay, because F1 is recognized that you are schooling here and you have a right to live here under the duration of the course of your study. But like Mike Rubio said, it's not a right because you are not a US citizen, nor you're a permanent resident. So it's a visa that was issued to you to come and study. If we get tired of you and say, oh, we don't want to study here anymore, we want you.
Seriously. Yeah, but the thing, sorry for cutting you, because fine, you come in as a foreigner, you're given a visa. When you get a visa, you are allowed to stay in the United States. There are certain rights that are accorded to you,
Yes.
And I would believe, in my own opinion, that free speech is one of the rights that are accorded to you. Now, like they said, you sometimes, let's say, and I think that you pointed out also that you can have free speech, but consequences after the free speech is another thing that you would have to be able to bear. But in my opinion, I feel like the lady you made mention of, she was expressing she's a pro-Palestinian, and I think she's a Turkish lady if I remember very well, and she's a pro-Palestinian, and she wrote some article. I didn't see it. But I saw the video where she was adopted, when they picked her up where she was, picked up by ICE. Like I said, I did not read article what she wrote, so I'm not sure exactly what she said. But I don't know if she in any way, attacked the United States in that article, that would, because to me, I'm just kind of thinking that I really don't think she should have been, because she's here legally, right? She's here
So
legally.
I think there was something, just to respond briefly before I lose the line of thought. I think there was something you said about rights, free speech, and all of that. I read somewhere that the Constitution of the United States is for the citizens of the United States. I don't know, is that correct, or am I saying that wrong? So
I mean,
so there's a difference between the United Nations fundamental human rights, which is right to religion, right to free speech. I think there are about 7 of them or 6 of them. Then also there's the Constitution of the United States that gives you that same right, very similar to what the United Nations Assembly also has. So I think in that case, I'm not a political activist, so I might not really have all the information locked down. But I think in that case, the grounds by which she was being detained was that they said she was inciting, because I read the story, they said she was inciting terrorism by supporting
Hamas, the Hamas group.
yeah, because Hamas is a terrorist organization, right? This is a recognized terrorist organization in the world, right? Generally, people recognize Hamas, that they sponsor terrorism and all of that. So it means if you're actually writing in support of Hamas, it means you're actually supporting terrorism. I think that was what the article that I read was actually trying to highlight. But I understand that there's a lot of misopinions about that. Like, since you're in a United States is the freest country in the world, you expect people here to be able to come in and have an opinion and be able to express their opinions. But I think the policy of this government is safety, and in line with that policy, if you're not a U.S. citizen, in fact, we've seen cases of where you actually have a green card if you are not very careful. If you are not very careful,
absolutely.
Where his green card has been rescinded on the grounds of terrorism, on the grounds of fraud or whatever, like so many cases out there that we can actually mention. So I'll just say that and possibly give the floor to any.
So before any moves ahead, I just wanted to quickly, because I just quickly checked, to see one of the points that you made earlier, like if the U.S. Constitution covers just all legal residents or only U.S. citizens. And what I'm reading from here now is the U.S. Constitution protects both U.S. citizens and non-citizens, including legal residents. So many of the rights and protections in the Constitution apply to persons rather than specifically to citizens. Now, there are specific rights for citizens, like voting rights and running for federal elections and all that, right? But like the Due Process 14th Amendment, First Amendment, which is the freedom of speech and freedom of religion, protects everyone in the U.S. regardless of immigration status.
Okay, as long as you're here legally, you're
here legally.
Okay.
And Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, which is the right to remain silent, due process applies to everybody as well. And which is one of the reasons why I feel like the woman, I think the lady recently, she went to court, right? This specifically we were talking about, and she went to court, and I think she's been released. I may have to actually check.
Well, not followed up on the story. Okay.
Yeah, I think they released her because it's just very, very clear. I mean, this is my opinion now. Like, based on the Constitution, as far as she has not committed something that you can classify as being treasonous or working against the United States, because when ICE, when they picked her up. In the first place, I was like, wait, is she an illegal immigrant? Why are they picking her up? Why is ICE picking her up? Right? So if she's a legal resident, ICE I don't know if ICE have any reason to pick her up, or if that is, or they can just, maybe because there was Immigration and Custom Enforcement, I think, or that's the name or so.
Yeah, I think for anybody that is there's a word they use for immigrants, they call them alien. I think if you're recognized as an alien, CBP, ICE probably have some level of jurisdiction, as well as USCIS. So I think they can detain you for 48 hours without cause, or 24, I can't remember. So then once it's getting longer than that, you have to be released. But I don't have all the information. But I think in that case, for the lady, they actually moved her away from Connecticut. Was it New Jersey or Boston to South Carolina? Now, I think they actually took her across state lines and stuff like that. So that's why.
Because some states are more friendly. I think some governors have decided to actually work with ICE, and maybe governors or even maybe some mayors in some of the cities, and sheriffs, police departments. They decided to like, okay, they will work with ICE. I think even in the state of Georgia, like the police department, like some counties are working with ICE to identify, people, because
Illegal,
the police cannot tell who is legal and who is not illegal. They don't have access to that database to know who is a legal person, except maybe when they ask you. And typically when they stop you on the road, can the police just ask you, are you a citizen or you're not a citizen? You don't have to answer that, right? When they stop you. So, but now it's more like, when somebody commits an offense, right? If they stop you for like the points in media.
Yeah, like I said, for the case of that lady in Georgia, right?
Yeah, for the traffic
violation, and then they now had probable cause to look into your identity. Yes, of course.
Yeah. So, and anyway, what are your thoughts on this?
This is interesting. I think for me, generally, US is a very fascinating place. Just, for me, I'm a student of, the policies and just seeing how systems run. And even though we're talking about immigration disadministration, it actually, there's already like so many years of what has gone ahead, many, many years that led us here, so to speak. And I would say I'm not even surprised. If we look at like the recent history, just towards the end of the first, I can't remember what was that. But anyways, some of these things that is happening now, they actually started happening before now. It is just that it didn't happen for so long, and maybe people weren't aware. I don't know. But I'm saying I'm not surprised, right? And if I can go further back, when I got in the US, I think one of the classes that I took, one of the textbooks, there was this guy, is a French guy called Alex de Tocqueville. The guy came to the US in 1890, thereabout. The guy, then the guy observed that, man, they are always, going back and forth with every issue here. So it's like, so when you now come now start saying, like, wow, this is a fascinating place in terms of how, the place runs. And I think some of these things are, I would say, like, that mechanisms are put in place so that, maybe one side or one place or one group of people doesn't have like permanent edge over the
advantage. Yeah.
So there's always going to be that push and pull. And I think for international students, I would just say, you have to understand, like some of you have mentioned, understand where you are, when you are, and also what you would want to do, what's your aim. I think when you put all those things together, you know how to move. After coming correct, you move correct too. You know how to move correct. But of course, with international students, you have your legal rights. All the rights for the US citizens also accrues to you. Besides, some of the ones you mentioned, voting. And I would even extend that even the responsibilities, upholding the law and all the penalties also. To you.
Yeah, right,
all of them also accrue to you.
Yeah.
Now, so I think the lady that you guys are talking about, followed it a little bit. Just stop following some of this because it's almost like this thing started happening like 5 years before, a little bit. So it's like just a continuation. Maybe it seems there are specific cases now, but it's a continuation and. Even if you are a US citizen, right? If you look at it this way, even if you're a US citizen, if the administration wants something and you're going against it, you are going to be met with whatever the administration has. Now there are laws that balances it out, So that's, to me, that is really how it works out. When even was it Martin Luther King or any of those guys, they were citizens, they were fighting for stuff. What happened to them? Right? They were able to achieve, some of these things, but I think it's just, to me, it's US and it's also human law. Naturally, how you want to fight something, you're in a situation, you want to make your case, then there's a constituted authority, whether formal or informal, that is going to try to push things back a little bit. But I think with your status that you might have, understand all the what that accrues, what it gives you to be able to do particularly, because there are restrictions, right? Rightfully how that is set up, we want you to come in, do what you need to do. And of course, there's also, yes, there's a lot of opportunity where you can really get exposed just by itself, which is to me is a form of education, but also, advance yourself career-wise or anyhow you want to do it, or, go back, anything you want to do. I think you have all of those options there. So it's a matter of, to me, just, figuring out which one works for you, what you want, or what's your end goal, and how you want to move within the system. That's just like a short, summary of the way I see it.
When you say move within the system, I think that was my next line of thought. So when you say move through the system, is there a set of patterns of behavior? I think that's what.
Okay, so if
a set of pattern of behavior as an immigrant under this current administration that you have to adhere to or ascribe to be able to avoid those pitfalls.
Yeah, I mean, you can. I think you can put it that way, but you can also put it at even any administration, almost even any administration. And when I say any administration, this administration has a particular position that they are cracking down heavily, right? Which is, this is what they want to do. The one that is seemingly not cracking down heavily too, you still have to move accordingly within that system, whichever administration, whatever their position is, right? So anything, I guess to me, it's not terribly different in the sense that when I'm saying how you want to move, basically you want to move, obey the law, you want to follow the stipulations, follow current trends, know what is happening so that you can benefit possibly or avoid issues possibly, so to speak, right? Let's say, I guess I can use an example. There are situations where maybe I think the previous administration, they extended the timeline for the duration of work authorization or something like that, because there was pressure, there was too many people, if you have to renew every year, they had it some years. So you can plan with these kind of things, right? Within that system, that administration. But this administration, I think those things are still in place actually. I think that they didn't take away those things. They just had in some, trying to trim the fat in their own view. So essentially, this administration is tougher on, the immigration. But whatever administration, you have to me, you have to make sure you are current. You know what changes, immigration changes and how is happening, favorable or not, from your view. And make sure you do what you need to do to achieve your own goal. I think that's the way I will see it. Under any administration, just to put it in general, as an international student, you're not going to work outside. It doesn't matter what that administration is. You understand what I'm trying to say? But of course, now, there's a lot more things happening that you need to be aware of. And I'm saying this because I was not following it too much anymore, because to me, it's just like continuation of what already started before. But it's definitely going to stress people out, right? And it's important that everyone, when I say everyone, me, you, everyone, we know what is obtainable currently and how we'll make sure, we stay within the bounds of the law, which we already do. But just making sure that there's not something new that they throw out there. Like, okay, let's say they say, okay, as far as you're not yet a U.S. citizen, you need to start coming to the whatever U.S. embassy every month. Yeah, well, you have to start going, until that law changes. that kind of a thing. So where the U.S. balances, why I like where they balance things out. A lot of all of these things are also being challenged at the court, right? And that would also follow its process. So in a way, you just don't want to get caught in that period when they are still trying to sort it out, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing. And whatever the administration has, they've also given them the power to do certain things, and they will execute it the way they want to execute it. Prior to now, ICE, I think, would not be involved. I mean, the police would not involve ICE, maybe, but except maybe I think there might be certain situations where they do. You know how these things work, right? If there's something that's very serious, they might have to, depending on the case. But now I think in some states, they just almost automatically kind of have access and they have that cooperation. So it's so you also have to know the state that you are in. So this speaks to the fact that you have to know what is obtainable, what state you are in, what is happening, generally and specifically in your own location as well. So I think these are some of the things that someone needs to take care of for themselves.